We have been discussing this samadhi, right view, Lakkana Pativeda samadhi, the right view by penetrating the characteristics or marks of existence in three ways. This is insight knowledge, Vipassana jnana, and as one sees the truth by being awakened to this Anicca Lakkana, one cultivates this right view or right understanding. We discussed that. When one is convinced about this anicca, impermanence, then there will be no more view of permanence. One will not cling to the view of permanence once one sees the impermanent nature of things. Then the delusion about impermanent characteristic, Lakkana Samoha, will disappear, just like when light comes, darkness goes. When one of these two arises, the other one will disappear. There's no need to make or to cause one to disappear. Just cause the light to appear, then the darkness will disappear automatically. But this kind of thing is not from hearsay or from the teachers or from the books or from thoughts, but only with the practice. By deepening one's concentration, deepening the connection, deeply connecting with the whatever is present, seeing the sabhava lakkana, the individual characteristics, one will come to see the arising and passing away and other characteristics of this mind-body process. Mind-body process which flows like a continuous thing, continuity of things of the same nature. This is penetrating or opening to the truth. And this happens only with the practice. Now the yogis are practicing in this way, deepening their concentration, deeply connecting with whatever is present by thinking of the moment. In this way, one comes to see, one is awakened to the knowledge of the arising and passing away of mind-body process. In this way, one is said to have seen the truth. This is Lakkana Pativeda samadhi, right view or right understanding by penetrating into the characteristics. One may ask this question: how about other characteristics, other marks, such as the marks of unsatisfactoriness and the mark of impersonality or selflessness? There's the Vipassana maxim that once one sees one real or genuine characteristic, one is said to have seen or to see all other characteristics. So, out of these three marks, akaras, namely anicca, dukkha, anatta of mind-body process, once one sees one of them, such as the impermanent characteristic, then one sees other characteristics. So if one sees one out of the three, the rest also are seen automatically. So when you say when one sees one characteristic, one sees others, we say that when one sees the real characteristics. When we say real characteristic, that means there is a fake characteristic. That goes without saying that there is such a thing as a fake characteristic. Now what is that fake characteristic? So we shall discuss today. As regards this genuine lakkana characteristic and fake or imitation, unreal characteristic, As one notes or experience the realities which can be directly experienced, the realities of mind-body process, which are very obvious, which can be directly experienced. In Pali it is known as paramatthas, not the conceptual things, not what you think it is, not from hearsay, not from what the teachers say or even reliable teachers say as true. It has to be experienced directly by oneself. Again in Pali, adapachaka, directly experienced by oneself. Just like being mindful of every arising, strengthening the mindfulness and concentration, deepening the concentration. One comes to observe the nature of the objects, the individual characteristics, namely hardness, softness, heat, cold, stiffness, tension, movement, cohesion, liquidity, flowing, solidity, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, thinking, or feeling, or good feeling, pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, depending upon the nature of the objects experienced. So all these things which arise in your body, obviously, if you don't note them with the method of Satipatthana and not see them with the practice of Satipatthana and not know them in the Satipatthana way, then this is samoha. One is said to be deluded or delusion. Or avijja, two kinds of avijja, not knowing the truth and knowing wrongly. And this has been with us for a long, long time, for many lifetimes, even in this life. Before we came to practice to observe the arising and passing away of the objects with the practice of Satipatthana, in the past moments we have not known anything like that. We have been ignorant. By being able to practice the mindfulness of mind-body process at the moment of their arising, seeing this arising and passing away of hardness, arising and passing away of softness, arising and passing away of heat, warmth, cold, arising and passing away of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching. Hodava, just as we say in this expression, Hodava abhavato. What has not been existent in the beginning arise and pass away. They disappear. They come and go. They appear and disappear. So all are impermanent. This is experienced by oneself. This is known as seeing the paramatthas, the directly experienceable, obvious objects. This mind-body process arises and passes away, and this is the real, genuine impermanence. This leads to genuine insight knowledge, Vipassana jnana. So here is the genuine characteristic, lakkhana, the real, genuine lakkhana. One sees one genuine or real lakkhana. So when one sees this genuine lakkhana, one sees also other genuine lakkhanas, namely Dukkha lakkhana and Anatta lakkhana, automatically. Now as regards the impermanence of fake knowledge. Now when somebody is born, comes into being and dies at certain age. Now we know that it is impermanent because one dies, one is born and one dies. So one sees the birth and the death of somebody. One knows that's all. But not the momentary arising and passing away, or arising and passing away of objects moment by moment. And also there is this concept of paññati, the man or woman involved, like John or whatever. Or this man, is born and he dies, that sort of thing. So we are we have this concept of a man or a woman. So this is also a nature, impermanent, because one is born and one dies, comes to an end of the life, so it is impermanent, so one knows that much only. But that's not the genuine anicca. It is fake or imitation anicca. So this is not the kind of anicca that you see arising and passing away in between. This is this kind of anicca, fake anicca, is associated with the conceptual being, such as person, being, individual, man, woman, and so on. Now, this is not the kind of paramattha, the really experienceable objects arising and passing away with the practice of satipatthana, seeing the impermanent nature. Here the paññatti concepts are involved. Like we have a pot or a glass, the pot breaks. We've been using this pot for some time and for some reason it breaks. Or a glass, we've been using this glass for some time and this glass breaks. Now this is also impermanent, but this involves again a conceptual object like pot or glass. This also is anicca, impermanent. Like a tree falls, or the house collapses, or the leaves fall, and so on. All these again are concepts, paññattis, and the mind is inclined. The mind is knowing the concepts as concepts, like house, leaves, trees, and so on. So with this concept, the awareness or concept of concept, one sees the impermanent nature, that is the fake or imitation anicca. And this knowledge also is fake knowledge of anicca. And this is not the real Vipassana jnana. So, it is not the kind of real observation or experiencing of the arising and passing away of the mind-body process with the practice of satipatthana. And instead this is a conventional knowledge, conventional awareness, not Vipassana jnana. Only with the practice of mindfulness and seeing the objects, paramatthas, arising and passing away, then that leads to, this kind of knowledge leads to anicca, knowing the real anicca or genuine anicca. Watching the abdomen, noting the rising and falling, observing these sensations, stiffness, movement, inflation during rising, and deflation, softness, relaxation during falling. All these things are directly experienced objects, paramatthas. By being mindful of these objects, the obvious individual characteristics, namely these sensations, with the practice of mindfulness, one sees the beginning and the end, arising and passing away by one's own experience. That is seeing the paramatthas, seeing the paramattha, the arising and passing away of the paramatthas. And this is the genuine anicca lakkhana. This is how one has got to cultivate anicca lakkhana. So this happens with the moment, at the moment of practice, or with practice, in the course of the practice, not from thinking or hearsay or by books and so on, or thinking or concept and so on, but seeing by oneself with direct experience these paramatthas arising and passing away. That these noted objects, these paramatthas, are impermanent. One comes to know this characteristic. So this is knowing the real or genuine anicca. This is vipassana. This is cultivating the genuine vipassana. we, the impermanent characteristic in this case. Vipassana, seeing the real impermanent characteristic. This is Vipassana. So, this is Anicca Lakkhana. The seeing this is the real Vipassana, insight knowledge. Once one knows the impermanent nature of objects, previously one had thought that things are permanent. One had pride, self-pride, self-conceit, that one will not die, one is strong and healthy, so one is going to be permanent, that sort of thing. This is a kind of pride. But now, once you see the arising and passing away of these objects with the practice of mindfulness, then the pride goes down. And this is the immediate benefit. When one sees the impermanent nature, then the view of permanence will disappear. The pride, one's pride will also go down. The practice is to weaken such pride, subdue one's concept of permanence, because one has been addicted to the fake, to things which are not true, and now you penetrate the truth, and your pride goes down. So this is the insight knowledge one can cultivate. That is because one walks this jnana path, one reaches this destination, that is jnana, with the practice of satipatthana. Therefore, being mindful of every arising, one is walking this jnana path. Then, by strengthening one's mindfulness and concentration, one comes to cultivate knowledge. So this is the kind of jnana that one can, this is the kind of destination one reaches because one walks this path. Then one will say to oneself, alas, these mind-body process are impermanent, they arise and pass away. So in this way one comes to acceptance and cultivate resolute faith. This leads to one's own personal faith arising by one's own experience. And this is not from hearsay or from books. As much as one is awakened to this knowledge, one cultivates this sada. So this is by one's own experience, one cultivates one's own sada by walking the jnana path by oneself, by strengthening the mindfulness and concentration. The knowledge rises by itself. Once one sees the genuine lakkhana or characteristic, genuine characteristic, one sees all. That is what is said. Once one sees the anicca lakkhana, the impermanent characteristic, or the mind-body process, which are called anicca, as we have discussed before, arise and pass away. Once one sees the arising and passing away, this mind-body process, which are called anicca by themselves. Once one sees that, one sees the remaining characteristic, namely dukkha lakkhana. So the mind-body and also the mind-body which are called anatta can also will be seen as being anatta. So in this way, just as we say, three at a blow, or by doing one thing, accomplishing three things at the same time. Why this? It is said that with that which is anicca, anicca, then dukkha. That which is anicca is also dukkha. The object which is impermanent, that object also is unsatisfactory. That is what is meant. In the body are these sensations, heat, cold, softness, hardness, and so on, cohesion, solidity. All these things have their name, one name, anicca. And These things also are called also dukkha or anatta. 3 names. They are called by 3 names. Now those which are called anicca are also dukkha, and there are no such thing as jiva adda, individual self or soul in them, nor are they jiva adda, nor is jiva adda in them, individual self or soul in them. And there's no such thing as the commanding force, paramata, the superior, supernatural superior force, Mahabrahma or things like that. There's nobody commanding. They're all conditioned psychophysical phenomena. There's no jiva adda, individual self or soul, hiding in them or getting stuck in them. You cannot find them, and there's nobody commanding it. They're just Dhamma niyama, that means Dhamma nature. They occur in accordance with the law, with the nature, or Dhamma nature, Dhamma niyama. These conditioned things flowing like a current, arising and passing away, and they are unsatisfactory and they are selfless, impersonal. Hence this young dukkha, dham, anatta. What is unsatisfactory is also substanceless, impersonal, selfless. So there's no such thing as Mahabrahma, the superior, supreme being, commanding. Has no atta, only anatta, non-self. In this, with this mind-body, Namarupa has 3 names. Anatta also, they are also anatta. When we say anatta, it's also them. When we call dukkha, it's also them. They are the dukkha. And if you call by the name of anatta, whereas anatta, then they will answer, oh, we are anatta. It is also them. They are also anatta. It's just like one villain, one bad fellow, having 3 names, doing bad things in 3 places, in various places. He has, say, 3 names, just like the villains in your stories. Because assumes names. And once a security force, security personnel, goes in pursuit of this villain who has 3 names. And once he's caught somewhere, the person who is caught is just one person. But it's like catching 3 persons because he has 3 names in 3 places or many places. So the one who is caught is just one person, but it's just like catching 3 persons because he or she has 3 names. So once sees anicca, one also sees dukkha automatically and also this anatta automatically. And this is what is meant. As for this dukkha, it is says dukkham payatena. Just as we have said, anicca kayatena. Anicca means anicca means just passing away, disappearing, ceasing, coming to an end, impermanent. So also we say dukkham payatena, unsatisfactoriness or dukkha is dangerous, it is suffering. This mind-body process, such as seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, bending, stretching, lifting, moving, placing, all these things are never permanent. They are never stationary for even one moment. They no sooner have they arisen, then they are gone, and they pass away. In this way, this arising and passing, the nature of arising and passing away is said to be tormenting or torturing the person, torturing us. We are being tortured. We are the victim of this arising and passing away because we are not free from this impermanent nature. the mind body is subject to impermanence. So one does not, they are unacceptable. They are because they are dangerous. They are despicable. One detests such things. For instance, there are this unpleasant mind body when one experiences. Then this will be very unacceptable because very despicable, dangerous. Even when this one encounters pleasant mind body, one cannot withstand this. One cannot stand this for a long time. For instance, when the yogis are sitting quietly, having good concentration, and once he or she hears a slight sound, then, of course, the sound also is impermanent. As it passes away, hearing consciousness also, this mentality also is impermanent. It arises and passes away. But even if it's a neutral sound, one does not wish to hear. One detests this because one is experiencing calm feeling, deepened concentration. So at once one gets frightened with the slightest, sound. This is a kind of this is the nature of this torment by this mind body arising and passing away from mind body. Not to speak of unpleasant sounds, if such things arise near the yogi, concentrated yogi. So whether it is a pleasant sound or unpleasant sound, they arise and pass away. They are impermanent. They are in a state of flux. And this hearing, this sound is also impermanent. And the hearing consciousness, which is mentality, also is impermanent. It arises and passes away. And one will not wish to stand this sound, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, for a long time. When one hears the same sound for a long time, then one will come to detest it. One will not wish to accept it. They become unacceptable. They will become unacceptable. So that's why when yogis are sitting still for a long time, and if he or she hears a sound, then he or she is frightened, and because the concentration is disrupted, because this becomes unacceptable. In this way, one is said to be tormented or tortured by the nature of arising and passing away. Hence, it is unsatisfactory. This is quite obvious. At this point, to be more clear, dukkha is of two kinds. The first kind is the unpleasant feeling or sensations which one experiences in one's body and mind. Let us say when we sit for some time, we experience a burning sensation in the body, unbearable, stiffness, tension, and so on. And these are unpleasant. This is one kind of dukkha. This kind of dukkha is known as dukkha, because it is a serious one. When we repeat the same word again, that means it is a sign of seriousness. So that one complains about this, or very painful and so on, very excruciating. This is known as dukkha, and this is one kind of dukkha. There's still another kind of dukkha, as is said, dukkha payatena. Dukkha is dangerous. Because it's dangerous, it is called dukkha. This continuity or continuous arising and passing away process is unacceptable, dangerous, detestable kind of dukkha. One does not wish to hear it. One cannot stand hearing. One cannot see. One does not wish to see it, or taste it, or smell it, and so on. And because this is arising and passing away continuously, but one cannot avoid it. But one knows that they are arising and passing away. One is just experiencing it. For instance, some yogis have a watch nearby, ticking away, and when it is very silent, this ticking sound is very prominent, because one's concentration is deepened. It's like seeing things minute things through a microscope. Because of the magnifying power, the small things are seen in a large way. So also, because of the power of concentration, the small sounds will become very prominent, very obvious. For instance, one is about to lie down and sleep, one hears this sound ticking away of the watch, then this becomes unacceptable, so one puts this away somewhere else so that one will not hear it. Because one is being tormented by the nature of this arising and passing away. The sound is arising and passing away. The material, the rupa, sound is arising and passing away. And so is the nama mentality, hearing consciousness. They are also dukkha. So in the body, this mind body arising and passing away continuously without break, torturing us. Who are us? Are we being tortured? There's no such thing as person, being, individual, man, woman. You who are tortured, they are the mind body who are tortured. Mind body themselves, they are tortured. So mind body are dukkha, unsatisfactory. Being tortured and not being free from being tortured by these mind arising and passing away, nature of arising and passing away continuously, mind body are unsatisfactory, dukkha. They arise and pass away, they are in a state of flux, the old giving place to a new, old giving place to the new, and in this way it is proceeding. When the new object, new mind body does not arise, then one is dead, one is said to be dead, one life is gone. That also is dangerous. So this mind body which is being tormented continuously by this arising and passing away is not pleasurable, unsatisfactory. We think it's pleasurable and we think it's satisfactory. This is wrong. So not seeing dukkha as dukkha, seeing it as satisfactory, pleasurable. One becomes attached to this mind body which is not free from arising and passing away. So in this way we are under the influence of this dukkha, because we do not see dukkha as dukkha, but seeing it in a reverse way, an opposite way, as being satisfactory or pleasurable. So because it is not free from mind arising and passing away, this mind body is not stable, is not durable. It dies, and it can die, it can perish, like a collapse, like living in a building, an old building, a wretched building, about to collapse any time. But as for this building, it may not collapse in a day or two. It may collapse in a month or year. But as for this mind body, arising and passing away, every moment, being tormented by this nature of arising and passing away, the old giving place to a new, and they are all in a state of flux. And one thinks it is permanent, and one thing is pleasurable and satisfactory. In fact, one may die by day or night, any time. Life is uncertain, death is certain. You may see somebody now, but he or she may disappear at the next moment, because may die with, some high blood pressure or something like that. But not for the yogis, because they are practicing. So this mind body are being tormented by this arising and passing away, and they will perish any time. And that's hence knowing this, one sees danger in it. They are very dangerous, because they are not free from arising and passing away. They are not acceptable, because they are dangerous. They are detestable, despicable. So one has got to observe this nature with the practice of Satipatthana at the moment of the arising of the spine body, so that one sees the unsatisfactory nature. And this kind of contemplation is known as contemplation of unsatisfactoriness, Dukkha Nupassana. And this is another knowledge, Dukkha Nupassana Jnana, another insight knowledge. So it was said that when one is going to sleep, that is a normal life, because one cannot stand this taking away of the watch, one wrap it up in a piece of cloth and put it away. Of course, that is different from the aversion that happens in the yogis when they cannot withstand the sound, when they hear somebody nearby making a sound. Because one's mindfulness does not take the priority. Instead, one is overwhelmed, overpowered by kilesa. Kilesa has taken the priority instead of mindfulness. Or kilesa occupies the mind instead of mindfulness guarding the mind. Hence, this becomes a disturbance to the yogi. So some yogis still report of being disturbed by such sounds in their reporting in interviews. So because they are not noting as soon as they hear, because the mindfulness is still weak and the mind hasn't been energized as yet, hasn't been developed as yet, therefore there is no repelling power or withstanding power, so that they become sensitive to such a slight disturbance. This amounts to aversion, anger, which is a negative emotion, patiga or dosa in Pali. So that is because the reason is because one has not developed enough energy, mental energy, so that it remains weak and still tender and weak. As is said, to guard the mind all the time with mindfulness of every arising, having seeing, hearing, tasting, and touching, and so on, deeply connecting with whatever is present at the moment, so that the mind becomes developed from weakness, and cultivating knowledge, so that one can develop this repelling and withstanding power, and not to be overcome by this negative emotion, dosa. If one has this negative emotion, that shows that one's mind is still weak and not well developed as yet, so that there's no repelling power, no withstanding power. The mind is still tender and not matured as yet. The root cause is not practicing in accordance with the instruction, and not noting and not being able to practice in accordance with the instruction, so that one is not doing well, not practicing well. So something new needs to be done on one side. So in order to fulfill that need, one should note as soon as one sees, hears, tastes, touch, and so on. As we said in the qualities of sati, in the satipatthana, to rush into the object and catch the object, to be on the dot. And in this way, one can develop one's mind, so that one will be able to even withstand larger sounds or louder sounds, not to speak of the slight sounds. Then this will amount to admitting to the meditation teacher that one's mind is developed and one is practicing well. In life, one is bound to encounter many worldly conditions, sometimes good, sometimes bad. When we experience pleasant things, we smile, and when we encounter unpleasant things, we cannot smile. So we have to build up the state of equilibrium. So if we are like this, agitated by likes and dislikes, good and bad things, then we will not be able to balance our mind, realize this state of equilibrium. So in order to build up this state of equilibrium, we have to develop our mind with the practice of Satipatthana, so that the mind becomes developed from tenderness and cultivate knowledge. So at this moment when one is striving to develop the state of equilibrium, one must understand what one needs to do. That is when one is sitting silently, if somebody walks by, then one tends to blame that person instead of blaming oneself. That amounts to not walking the path of Satipatthana. And one will blame, because one tends to blame another person instead of blaming oneself. Actually, that person is not purposely disturbing, maybe accidentally. He or she made some noise. So we have to bear such things. One must see one's own fault, that is lack of mindfulness, not others' fault. Like driving a vehicle, you drive according to the track, the traffic track, discipline, according to the discipline, and according to the speed, the normal speed, so that others will not suffer because of one's mistake. One will not suffer because of one's mistake, and also other people also will not suffer because of one's mistake. So in this way, one has to drive the vehicle, keeping to one's own track. And instead of keeping one to one's track, if we are blaming and looking at other vehicles and criticizing them, then one is sure to get into an accident. So here also it is very important to walk the path of Satipatthana with a normal speed, like driving a vehicle. When one comes to the traffic light, if it's depending on the color of the light, you have to act according to that. If it's green, you have to move, yellow, caution, and red, stop. So in the Satipatthana also, in accordance with this maxim, to guarding your mind all the time. So you have to guard your mind all the time, like driving the vehicle, keeping the vehicle on the right track, and discharge one's own responsibility. The responsibility of the yogi is to note whatever arises, so that when the mindfulness gains that priority, then there will be no likes or dislikes, no agitation, no emotional response. In this way, one is free from these two extremes of likes and dislikes. If one is practicing with normal speed, walking a path of Satipatthana, as is the meaning of the yogi. Yogi is to keep to his or her own discipline, like the driver of the vehicle when it comes to the traffic light. So also the yogi has to move if there's green light, and if it's yellow light, then he or she has to be very careful. And a red light, that is when the prohibitions, he or she just stops there, not to get into an accident. So it is very important not to cause accident because of one's own mistake. And for that reason we are practicing this mindfulness, so that one will not be in the wrong. And in this way one is developing to energize one's mind so as not to make mistakes. And in this way, if one is able to cultivate knowledge, then one will be able to withstand any adverse conditions. And this way, if one is not able to withstand, lacks withstanding power or repelling power, this amounts to admitting to the meditation teacher that one is lacking something. So walking the path of jnana path, the path of Satipatthana, like the driver, deeply connecting with whatever is present, deepening this mindfulness and concentration, developing one's mind so as to be able to withstand the good and bad conditions of life and be able to strive to realize this benefit in the remaining days. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Peace. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Peace. Sadhu, sadhu.